Good morning, Southwest Florida. Welcome to another edition of Lee Pitts Live. We're here at the famed Luminary Hotel, downtown Fort Myers, one of the centerpieces of downtown Fort Myers, and it is a spectacular setting indeed. We're in the Firestone conference room. The accommodations here have just been great. What a fabulous addition to the downtown landscape here in the city of Fort Myers. Of course, this is our second time here. The first time we were out at poolside, so we decided to come inside this time, and it's certainly nice to be here. Speaking of the city of Fort Myers, we have a fabulous show in store for you today. We'll get a chance to talk to the chief of the fire department. Tracy McMillian will be here. We'll also talk to the head man in charge, the mayor of the city of Fort Myers, Kevin Anderson, is right here live in the studio. We're gonna go to a break and we'll be right back. Southwest Florida, welcome back. We're so thrilled to get him in here. Mr. Mayor, can you lean forward and pick that up for a second? The mayor of the city of Fort Myers. Mr. Mayor, it's good to get you here.
Good to be here, Lee.
The Luminary Hotel. You heard me in my introduction say it's one of the centerpieces of downtown Fort Myers. You had that big smile on your face when I was talking about it. You, as a sitting city councilman, you were a part of the whole process of this whole redevelopment here with the Calusa Sound, remodeling of Harborside, creating Calusa Sound on that side, and this big hotel right here. So sitting here right now, and the TV show sitting in here, just what's comes to mind?
Yeah, actually, it was put in place prior to me getting on the council, but I was here for the completion of it, and it's a grand hotel. The views are spectacular. I mean, just looking out the window right here at the river. If you've been up to the Beacon Social Drinkery, at nighttime when the sun goes down, outstanding. This is a real plus for downtown and the city. Not just the city, but the region as well.
The hotel rooms in general. I mean, just riding downtown, you know, I've been around here at least, 35 years or so, and I'm just seeing all of this just magnificent down McGregor on the rivers. Like, this river is just becoming what it was imagined to be, right?
Right.
Go ahead and speak to the importance of that.
The river is a central place. It's a focal point for downtown. It's a great attraction. It brings people down here to support the businesses. At some point, we're going to have a river walk, probably going from the Edison home out to the Riverside Center, which will be even a greater attraction. We're in the process of looking at the yacht basin, getting that brought up a little bit, cleaned up, and if you watch, there are some big ships that come by, because you can go from the Gulf over to the Atlantic Ocean, and our goal is to get our yacht basin as a place people want to stop, spend the night, spend the weekend, whatever. Moor their boat, get off, and hit downtown.
The long-term planning is in place. Back to the Riverwalk. When do you, like in an ideal world, that Riverwalk, as imagined, would probably be in existence, say, how many years from now?
Yeah, I wish I could say 1 year or 2 years, but we're probably looking at a minimum of 5 years, because there's a lot of planning to go in there, acquiring the land. There are some areas where we're going to have to actually build the walk out over the water versus being on the existing land. So it's going to take a little bit of work.
And then when you're going over the Caloosahatchee Bridge, you can see that island that's been sitting out there for many years. I read the history of it. Different people have tried to do things with it. It looks like reality that something's going to occur on that island in the future, right?
I'm hoping next year we'll see some activity. They've cleared all the non-native trees off, and from what I understand, there could be like a little, not a theme park, but a little activity center. Almost like a rest stop on the highway where you could pull off.
Oh, eat. I see.
Yeah, so it's going to be like a rest stop on the river.
Okay, I thought it was going to be a restaurant or something. Probably a little food
and there might be,
too.
yeah.
Right,
right. Hopefully there'll be a restaurant, maybe a bar.
The amphitheater, people who are driving through can see where Centennial Park look like it's getting ready to morph into something that's going to be even more user-friendly, more activity. Talk about that and what it means to the city.
Well, we're investing a little over $3 million. $1 million of it was grant money from the state, which will purchase, or is being used to purchase, playground equipment for children with special abilities. So now that park's going to be all inclusive, as well as replacing those invasive trees that were planted years ago. We're going to replace 90 some trees with 130 some trees. So we're going to have a net gain of 30 trees.
That'd be nice.
Then
for
the
walking
amphitheater
too.
is going to be a showcase for the park.
Okay.
Hopefully we'll see a lot of activities at that amphitheater.
The whole goal is to push traffic towards the river, more stuff downtown. The homeless people, that got a lot of attention when they had to be moved away from the park, people who slept out there, what have we. What was your whole overall position on there, and where are we stand now in terms of the city of Fort Myers addressing the homeless?
So a couple things with that. I took a dual approach to that problem. There is the human, compassionate side, and there's the business side. We've taken downtown a long way in the past 20 years. We can't afford to slip backwards. The businesses have to be profitable and the activity down here vibrant. It's got to be a place people want to come. So I worked with Lee County and the Salvation Army. A lot of homeless, when they saw they weren't going to be able to camp out in the park, actually left and went back to where they came from. But a good percentage of them were put into transitional housing to help get them stabilized. Some were put into programs for counseling, whether it be substance abuse, mental health. We did a lot of work trying to help people get jobs, job training. We were able to clean up the parks in downtown, the library. Now, long term, that's the next piece. I put together a task force back when I first got elected, the mayor's task force on homelessness. They presented to the city council last Monday, and now the city manager and I will sit down and look at their recommendations and see what, if any, we can implement to take that long-term approach.
What role does government play in all of this? Like, when I'm looking at this, I'm saying, well, who really has the responsibility for this? What's your thoughts on that?
I've always been clear that it's not government's responsibility to feed, house, or clothe people. Doesn't mean we can't play a part. But when you put all that responsibility on, especially local government, now you're taking resources away from actually running the city and providing services. So social services, churches, nonprofit organizations, that's the key to this. We're working. We're working with St. Matthew's House to hopefully get a shelter up here. We work closely with Salvation Army. But the problem is, when you look at homelessness, there's 4 categories, and a lot of people don't understand this. You've got chronic homelessness. Those are people with severe substance abuse or mental health issues, and for the most part, they're unemployable. Then you got episodic. Those typically are younger kids. Same situation, mental health, substance abuse issues, employment issues. Those are very difficult. Those homeless usually are in and out of a place. They live at home, get in a fight, get kicked out, they're out on the street, then they're back. But the next 2 categories we can really make a difference with, and that's the situational homeless. People who had a crisis in their life that caused them to lose everything. Some of them are on the streets and some are what we call hidden. They're lost their house, but they're living with somebody. They're couch surfing. Those are people that we can help stabilize and get back into a normal, lifestyle of having a good, decent, safe place to live.
It's fair to say that we will always have the homeless amongst us.
Unfortunately,
it just
yes.
has to be managed as best as possible. Now, I would think that a warm weather city like the city of Fort Myers, growth would attract more homeless people. That's just a part of the deal, right? All right, let's change gears. The state of the city of Fort Myers, now that you've gotten into a new fiscal year, Mr. Mayor, what is the state of the city of Fort Myers?
Lee, the state of the city of Fort Myers is outstanding right now. We have a very bright future. We have new management in place. We have a balanced budget as usual, about 141 million operating. We were able to roll back the taxes. You know, at one point, Fort Myers had a millage rate of 8.8, dangerously close to the cap of 10%. One major hurricane, one COVID pandemic event could have really wiped the city out. We're driving that millage rate back down.
You rolled it back to what?
7.5, and they
Okay.
have several numbers after that.
Okay. So when you are able to roll back the millage rate, what does that do for our city?
What it does for citizens is it gives them, or puts them in the position where they're paying less property taxes, which gives them more disposable or discretionary spending that they can participate in. It makes the city more attractive, I think, for people to want to live in the city. And that's very important, because almost everything we do and talk about really revolves around economic development. How do we bring companies here that have good paying jobs? And part of doing that is to make the city as attractive as possible. That being low taxes, low crime rates, good parks, good neighborhoods, better roads, everything that makes it a place where people say, that's where I want to raise my family.
Yeah, but within that whole construct is property taxes, whether you can afford to buy a house, whether there's affordable housing in place. Let's go down the housing road and how we're managing that process. Now, when I go down McGregor Boulevard, I'm seeing some beautiful condos or whatever. It's just great. I love seeing that development taking place there, because I remember how it used to look.
Right.
It's just like we were really on the move, got the grocery store there. And then as we move back towards Martin Luther King, people in the area, many are saying, hey, can we get some of that over here? There are some things that you're proud of that's coming down the pike in terms of improved housing stock, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's not just housing, but everything that plays together with housing. So we've got a Choice Neighborhoods Initiative grant from the federal government. We were one of 5 cities. I forget how many applied, but it was a very rigorous competition for the money. We received a grant of $30 million. That is going to help us take the old Southward Village and put up more current housing, better housing, mixed income housing. So it's no longer just saying, okay, we're going to warehouse poor people in this neighborhood. We're trying to break that cycle. That doesn't do any good. Out of that, we're hoping, we're very excited of the possibility that in the area of Ford and Edison, that we may actually see a grocery store and a bank.
I thought that was a foregone conclusion. That's still, you putting the word possible.
Well,
I thought the grocery store was included in the whole Dunbar initiative. Marcia Davis was in here to talk about it.
It is, and I say possible, but until we have a grocery store owner or chain that says yes. I mean, I've reached out and had very preliminary conversations with low-level people from both Winn-Dixie and Publix about trying to get a grocery store.
Okay, because that's been something that's ongoing, and hopefully to come to reality.
Yeah, we can make the building happen.
Right, just to get the tenant.
I mean, we had Tops, which didn't work. So whatever we do, we need to make sure we do it right, because the last thing you want to do is have a grocery store open just to shut down.
Right, and name brand does matter.
Yeah.
Let's stay over there in that area. We also have Toll's Garden that's coming along. The condos for sale townhomes, 140 units right up the street there on Edison. You familiar with that project as well?
Absolutely, and half of those units have to be affordable workforce, not market rate. So at least half of them, I think 71 of them, so it's just over half. We, as a city, have helped by clearing the land and making that land available. And we're also, for those units, we'll be offering a $10,000 down payment for those who are qualified.
That's very good to hear. The city of Fort Myers, when you're sitting there as a mayor, when you're thinking about how resources are allocated, a lot of the conversation is being, hey, let's bring up property values all over. When you hear people say in the Dunbar community, the largest African American community in Southwest Florida, that the increase in property taxes is going to essentially cause them to have to sell their homes. They can't keep up the payments and that type of thing. What's your response to them?
Well, several things. One, Florida has the Save Our Homes. So property values cannot increase more than 3% in a tax year. So it doesn't matter what the value of your house goes up, the assessed value can only go up 3%. Then we also have the Homestead Exemption, which was started out at $25,000, has now been doubled to $50,000. So if you're a homeowner, you know, right off the bat, if you have a $150,000 home, you're only being taxed on $100,000. So there's a savings there.
Okay.
And there are programs that will help offset tax increases. There's a program we're looking at in Atlanta. It's called, I think, the West End Project, something like that, where there's money available. If your property taxes go up and you can't afford it, you can get the money to pay the difference so you don't get taxed out of your
West
house.
End in Atlanta, you're bringing back memories.
Yeah.
I went to school at Atlanta University.
Okay.
And that was in the West End area.
Yeah.
I used to walk up to the grocery store at
Yeah.
A&P in West End. Hadn't heard that name in a long time. You getting a chance as a mayor, or you getting a chance to move around and see what other people are doing in other cities? Y'all starting to
Just got back from Richmond.
Okay, talk about that.
And we got to tour the Black History Museum and Heritage Cultural Center in Richmond, and sat down with the leadership there to see how they made that happen, because we're committed to making something happen at Clemente Park.
Clemente Park.
We're going to make that happen.
We've seen you out front on that, like a world-class cultural center there. Going to cost some nice little piece of change, but it's worth it.
Yeah. Every time I meet with a developer or a contractor, my final words to them is, as we're departing, I said, I want you to keep something in your mind. How can you be a part of making the Black Cultural Center happen? What can you do as a developer or a contractor? So I'm just planting the seeds right now.
Okay.
And then hopefully as we start moving, I'll be able to start picking up the phone and saying, hey, now it's time.
But Martin Luther King corridor coming into the city of Fort Myers, that's a dynamic corridor in terms of it's the closest route into the city. It needs to be attractive. We got, when I come down that corridor, I'm constantly looking at those junkyards. I'm like, man, if these junkyards weren't here and this was a nice development. I'm sure everybody talks about that. Just the whole beautification, the concept of making Martin Luther King have that look of, say, a Daniels or a Colonial coming in. What's your thoughts on that?
The intersection of Ortiz and Martin Luther King, and several, half a mile each way, is ready to explode, to get cleaned up and get developed. Not just developed, but we're talking about as many as 2,000 to 3,000 jobs, which plays into the housing issue. If you raise income levels, the housing is not as unaffordable as it was. So that's one way to attack the housing as well. But we're going to see that area explode, and we're going to work to get those junkyards cleaned up. The problem is you got one junkyard in the city, and the one right next to it is not incorporated. It's not in the city limits. We don't have a lot of control over that.
When you say work to get junkyards cleaned up, not to spend too much time on junkyards, because I got some other key things I want you to hit on, but there's a lot of legality, there's a lot to that, right? To take a business, would you have to relocate that business? Those types of things.
There's several approaches that we can take. Obviously, buying them is not one, because you're talking a tremendous amount of money. But we're going to work with the owners to hopefully get them relocated, whether it's back off the main road, so it's not fronting a major thoroughfare into the city.
I see what you mean.
And so think about that. You get that area cleaned up.
Oh, yes.
You get the cultural center at Clemente Park, and we get something developed at the News Press building site. Now, the potential for MLK to fill in between those things.
I'm glad you mentioned the news press. We got the head guy here. I think I last read that was a possibility that would become the police department.
We purchased it for that purpose. Now there's some debate over whether that's the highest and best use for that piece of land. We have to get a new police headquarters. They've outgrown what they have. There's building issues. We're paying rent in several areas because we need space. So that's got to happen. Now, whether that's the best site or not remains to be seen. I personally would like to see that as a mixed use, a multifamily unit with retail on the first floor. That's the gateway into Midtown, as well as anchoring that end of Martin Luther King. And like I said, you get that going, you got the cultural center, get it to fill in, the cultural center to Ortiz, get that to fill in, and we could change the look of that corridor.
The police department that came up in Crossing, Chief Derek Diggs, African American police chief, by all accounts too, in general, he's done a sterling job bringing crime down.
Oh, yes.
There are people who think that you and the chief might have some friction. Speak to that.
I don't know if it's friction. I stand for what I believe in, and sometimes, like a lot of people, we probably don't see eye to eye. You know, one of the things was his contract 2 years ago. I didn't have a problem with renewing the contract. What I had a problem with was a 20% raise, when we, at that time, were going to offer city workers 2%. So 2% of what the public works person is making versus 20% of what the police chief's making, that's a big difference. And so it's
all about the money.
Well,
in that particular case.
Yeah, I mean,
but let's get away from the money.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go to this, Mr. Mayor. How do you think the chief is doing in terms of his job?
As we mentioned, crime is down. We're earning this. We're the 8th safest city in the country now.
That's good to hear.
Oh yeah, and we're earning, I think, the respect back that was lost over those years, and it's starting to be an agency where people want to go work, which means we don't have to work as hard to recruit people, because people are looking at us instead of us having to go out there and drag people in.
I love looking at that diversity at the high levels and department heads. I think you're a big fan of that too. You have no problem with that. You expressed that to me. Our fire chief, Tracy McMillian, is constantly out there in the community. By my accounts, he's doing a great job. I don't know how to measure fire, but what's your thought about our fire chief, Tracy McMillian?
You know,
African American.
When the prior chief announced he was leaving, and the current chief's name surfaced, I went to the city manager and the head of HR, and I said, don't waste the time and money on doing a national search. We have someone right here who is respected within City Hall, within the fire department, and within the community. And as you may or may not know, I spent an average of 4 hours with every shift at every fire station. And some of them I did more than once. So I got to spend a lot of time with our firefighters. Got to really see up close what they do. I mean, I know what firefighters do, but to see them in action is a different story. And so I got to talk with so many of them. And not one said no. They all were saying, this is who we need as our chief.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Early on, we mentioned hurricanes when we're talking about something else in terms of millage rates and having things in place, shelter. How are we, the city of Fort Myers now, in terms of hurricane preparation, shelters? I know there's been a lot of talk about hardening the city in terms of places for hurricane.
So we're still seeking some federal funding to shore up the STARS building, so it will be hurricane rated. One of the things under consideration for the cultural center would be to get federal dollars to make that a shelter as well. So we're working to make sure we can take care of people during hurricanes. Obviously, we all know though, if you just pay attention, and if the experts are saying, get out of town if you can.
You said this with a smile. I think it's a law in the city of Fort Myers that you have to balance the budget at the end of the year. If
Yes.
That's correct. From my old days I've interviewed so many mayors over the years. which is a pleasure. But under that whole umbrella is fiscal responsibility. You champion fiscal responsibility. How do you, tell us about your philosophy towards fiscal responsibility?
Well, I'm a firm believer that we have an obligation to the taxpayer to spend their money, not our money, but their money wisely. And not just money, but to manage all the resources of the city wisely. That includes all the different facilities we have. We need to make sure we take care of them because they're owned by the taxpayer. I stress to all the employees who operate city vehicles, again, take care of that car. Treat it like it's your own. Mm-hmm. Don't drive it crazy because you're not going to have to fix it. Somebody else will fix it. All those dollars, just the cost of repairing a vehicle adds up. The cost of maintenance on a facility that's been neglected adds up. All those dollars, they may not seem much if you say, well, it's only this much. But you take this and this and this, and you add it together, and guess what? All of a sudden, you're looking at real money. Mm-hmm.
The city of Fort Myers functions under not a non-strong mayor system, meaning that the mayor has a voting city council and does a lot of ceremonial type things. But in watching you move around since you've been the mayor, going up on a year now, it seems that you're really detailed. You're into the nuts and bolts of what's going on in the city. You don't see yourself as just a ceremony. You see yourself as more hands-on, actually like running the city.
I like to think, and I hope others do as well, that I'm an integral part of running the city. I'm not just out there, cutting ribbons and kissing babies and shaking hands and all those things. That I'm actually involved in trying to make this a better city. And by making the city better, I mean, that also includes taking care of the people who work for the city. We have to be competitive with how we pay. We don't want to be a training ground where we hire people, train them, and then go work somewhere else. So we want the best employees. I've always said, start from the beginning. Hire the right people, train them properly, promote the right people to supervise, and then compensate them fairly.
The tourism, COVID-19, how are we going to be looking going into this year as it relates to the sort of the winding down of the COVID situation and then ramping up on more tourism?
Lee, we came out of the pandemic pretty good. I have to give kudos to the city leadership, how, this was something you just don't plan for. And so it was new. It was uncharted waters. And city leadership came together and they took a hard look at the budget. They were ready to save money. In fact, they saved money in a lot of different places. All the department heads cut their budgets to make sure we could get through this. We made sure safety was a factor. We did our best to keep our employees safe, as well as passing out stuff for the general public, masks, hand sanitizer, and information to help them get through this as well.
Right. Now, you speaking of it in past tense, do you want to leave it like that? It's past tense?
Well, I wish it was past tense, yes.
Okay.
All right. And we still are paying attention, and we're still trying to do the right things to weather through this. I'm hopeful that we're at the tail end. Mm-hmm. I'm an optimist. But if we're not, we're ready to address it.
November 2022 means what to you?
Hopefully it means a landslide re-election.
Okay. That
the people will voice their opinion by re-electing me and saying, we're happy with the job you're doing and we want you around for another 4 years.
Okay. Well, I will say that you, from my vantage point, I've been watching you and you have taken advantage of that year that you've been in office. You everywhere, you got your hands on things, and that's really good for the city. Keep up the good work.
Well, thank you.
Well, Mr. Mayor, I also want to thank you for coming to Lee Pitts Live After Work on the 30th anniversary of the TV show.
Don't go there.
And you did a great job out there cutting the rug, dancing, and enjoying yourself. We want you to come back out, and of course, giving me the key to the city was a proud moment for me.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that, and I appreciate your contributions to the community over the years.
All right, I want to continue to be an ambassador for the city of Fort Myers. As the saying goes on this particular show, for those who say it can't be done, they are usually interrupted by those like our fine mayor for the city of Fort Myers, Kevin Anderson, who are doing it. As we say on this show, Miami has the oranges, but Fort Myers got
That's the juice.
We even got the mayor in on it. When we come back, we're going to talk to our fine chief of the fire department, see if we can get him in on the whole new saying as well. And one day we'll see it on the police cars. Miami has the oranges, but Fort Myers got the juice. We'll be right back.
Lee Pitts Live is a Lee Pitts Enterprise production.
Hello, everybody. This is Lee. I'm so glad that you watched that particular show. And if you enjoyed that show, we got other shows like that. Just subscribe to our YouTube channel. Watch Lee Pitts Live on demand anytime. And also hit us up on all our social media platforms. Just type in Lee Pitts Live, and there you go.